Life has a way of feeling permanent when everything is working, when routines repeat, laughter fills rooms, and tomorrow looks like yesterday. For Kelly Ripa, that sense of permanence shattered the moment her husband, Mark Consuelos, faced a serious medical crisis that required intensive care. One day, they were sharing everyday conversations. The next, she was standing in a hospital surrounded by machines, silence, and fear. The shift was disorienting, almost unreal, like stepping into someone else's life without warning. Kelly later reflected that the most frightening part wasn't just the situation itself, but how quickly normalcy disappeared, reminding her that even the most stable lives can change in a heartbeat. The weight of uncertainty. Hospitals carry a unique emotional gravity. Time stretches, sounds feel louder, and every update carries immense weight. For Kelly, each moment in the waiting room was filled with conflicting emotions: hope, fear, exhaustion, and determination. She was no longer a public figure or a television host. She was simply a wife facing the possibility of loss. The uncertainty forced her to confront questions no one ever wants to ask, while also demanding strength she didn't know she possessed. In that space, she learned that fear doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and heavy. A husband's first instinct. Even in his most vulnerable state, Mark's thoughts were not focused on himself. His first concern was their children. Rather than dwelling on fear or pain, he wanted to see them, to reassure them, to be present as a father. That instinct spoke volumes about who he was, not just as a partner, but as a parent. For Kelly, this moment was both heartbreaking and grounding. It reminded her that love often reveals itself most clearly during hardship, when priorities become unmistakably clear. Bringing family into the room, welcoming their children into the hospital room was an emotional decision, layered with worry and intention. Kelly wanted to protect them, yet she also knew how important this moment was for Mark. When the children entered, fear softened into connection. Words didn't need to be perfect. Presence was enough. The room, once clinical and cold, became filled with love, reassurance, and quiet strength. In that moment, Kelly saw how family has the power to transform even the most difficult spaces into places of meaning. Lessons shared in stillness. Mark spoke to each child in his own way, offering guidance shaped by love rather than fear. To their eldest, he emphasized responsibility and integrity, reminding him that strength isn't about control, but about character. To their middle child, he spoke of empathy, encouraging kindness, and understanding in a world that often lacks both. With their youngest, he focused on joy and humor, teaching that laughter can exist even during hardship. Kelly watched as these conversations unfolded, realizing that parenting isn't only about years spent together, but about moments that leave lasting impressions. Love without guarantees. One of the most profound moments came when Mark made a simple, deeply emotional request: that Kelly continue to share his love with their children if he ever couldn't. It wasn't dramatic or despairing. It was honest. That request stayed with her through long nights and quiet moments of reflection. It became a reminder that love is something we actively give, not something we assume we'll always have time for later. In that space, Kelly realized how important it is to express affection openly, without hesitation or delay. Waiting and remembering. The hours spent waiting were filled with memories. Kelly thought about their early years, shared struggles, laughter, arguments, and growth. Those reflections brought both comfort and pain, reinforcing how deeply intertwined their lives were. She understood that love isn't defined by grand gestures, but by accumulated moments, conversations, shared meals, inside jokes, and ordinary days that quietly build a life. Waiting taught her patience, humility, and the value of reflection when everything else feels out of control. Small signs. Big Hope recovery didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments. A steadier breath, a clearer look, a faint smile. Each small improvement felt monumental. Kelly learned to celebrate these moments without rushing ahead. Hope wasn't loud or dramatic. It was steady and persistent. As Mark slowly regained strength, the room filled with cautious optimism. Those early signs of progress reminded her that healing often happens quietly, one step at a time. The return of his voice. When Mark was finally able to speak comfortably, it felt like a turning point. Conversations returned, along with humor and storytelling. Laughter, soft at first, became a sign of recovery. Hearing his voice again brought a sense of familiarity and reassurance, restoring pieces of their shared rhythm. Kelly realized how much communication anchors relationships, and how deeply she had missed even the simplest exchanges. Relearning strength. Physical recovery required patience and humility. Tasks that once seemed effortless became goals worth celebrating. Walking, standing, and moving independently were victories, not expectations. Kelly watched as Mark approached recovery with determination rather than frustration. His progress reflected the lessons he had shared with their children: resilience, persistence, and courage lived out in real time. Recovery became not just physical healing, but a demonstration of character. Steps that meant everything. Mark's first walk down the hospital hallway symbolized far more than physical improvement. It represented survival, effort, and the power of support. Therapists, family, and encouragement surrounded him, reinforcing that healing is rarely a solo journey. Kelly felt awe watching him reclaim movement, understanding that these steps carried emotional weight for their entire family. It was a reminder that progress doesn't need to be fast to be meaningful. The day they went home. Returning home was emotional and grounding. Familiar spaces felt transformed, carrying deeper meaning than before. Simple things, sunlight through windows, shared meals, quiet conversations, felt extraordinary. Home became a sanctuary for healing and reconnection. Kelly noticed how the absence of noise and pressure allowed them to focus on what truly mattered: being together, resting, and appreciating the calm they once overlooked. Redefining what matters. Life after the hospital brought new priorities. Public schedules and obligations took a backseat to presence and mindfulness. Coffee on the porch, slow mornings, and shared laughter became intentional choices rather than afterthoughts. Kelly and Mark discovered that fulfillment wasn't tied to productivity or appearances, but to connection and appreciation. Normalcy was no longer defined by routine, but by meaning. Growth within the children. The experience deeply affected their children as well. They became more emotionally aware, empathetic, and open. Conversations grew more honest, time together more valued. The family learned that vulnerability strengthens relationships rather than weakening them. Through fear and uncertainty, they developed a deeper respect for communication and emotional presence, emerging more united than before. Gratitude as a practice. Kelly found that gratitude reshaped everything. Ordinary routines became moments of reflection and appreciation. Listening, sharing, and simply being present gained new significance. Gratitude wasn't about ignoring hardship. It was about recognizing beauty alongside it. This shift allowed her to approach life with greater intention, transforming daily experiences into meaningful connections. The strength of shared love. The journey highlighted how love sustains people through uncertainty. Mark's focus on family, combined with Kelly's resilience, created a foundation that carried them forward. Their story resonated because it reflected a universal truth. Love doesn't eliminate fear, but it makes fear bearable. It showed that strength and vulnerability can coexist, creating deeper bonds through honesty and support. Beginning again with intention. Life. After intensive care wasn't about returning to the past, it was about beginning again with awareness. Recovery opened space for reflection, intention, and growth. Their home became a place not just of comfort, but of renewed purpose. Each day offered opportunities to choose presence over distraction, gratitude over assumption, and love over delay. Living fully, starting now. At the heart of Kelly's reflections is a simple but powerful message. Don't wait. Say, I love you. Show up. Forgive. Laugh. Life's meaning isn't found in perfection or certainty, but in connection and shared moments. Their journey illustrates that even in fear, love can guide, heal, and transform. By living intentionally and valuing presence, ordinary days become extraordinary, and that is where life is truly lived,